Returning to the Basmala, the origins of it, let's say if it's a divine echo, it could be an echo of more than just one previous uh, revelation, of course. So you mentioned one possibility. There's another that I think has to be included, and that is if one pulls out the Hebrew Bible, right, and looks at Exodus 33 and 34, right, this is very famous, right, at least in Judaism, very famous, where Moses um, speaking with God, and God promises or tells Moses, I'm going to appear to you. I will appear before you. In Hebrew, it's like literally in front of your face, right? I'm going to appear in front of you, and I, that is God, I will pronounce my name, right? And so then, right, one reads a little bit, and then we read of this scene where God appears to Moses, and God speaks. And he says, Yod He Vav He El Rachum Wa Chanun. Right? So tetragrammaton, that's, Yod He Vav He, twice, and then El, the short form of Elohim or God. And then we can translate it different ways, but I prefer merciful and gracious. Interestingly, both of those terms, Rachum and Chanan, are etymologically related to two different nouns in Hebrew that refer to the womb, that mean the womb, both of them,
Right.
right? So usually the Rachum is, most scholars know that, but if you study your etymology, you will find out that also Chanan, this uh, grace, right, in Hebrew is also cognate, is based on, a synonym, right, for the womb. And but the verb in Hebrew, right, that this is introduced by, where God speaks, is vayikra, right? So it's the Hebrew cognate of ikra, right? Ikra, as we have in the Surah Alaq. So, so it seems to me that we at the Basmala on the primary, the principal or primary echo is that of Exodus 34, verse 6, right? And this is something I recently had a conversation with Rabbi um, Krishif he's in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he pointed out that this verse, that it's actually two verses, which are very important for Judaism. And so when God appears and he says, Lord, Lord, God, merciful and compassionate, then some more synonyms for compassion, but then also the judgment side, right? God is also a God of judgment. Uh, he's merciful for 1,000 generations, but he doesn't forget sins for 3 generations, for up to 3 generations, right? So much more merciful than judgmental. But what the rabbi pointed out to me was that when you have later echoes of that passage in the Tanakh, for instance, in the Tehillim or the Psalms, the judgment part is left off. The echo is just God is merciful and gracious, or merciful and compassionate. And this is exactly what we have on the Basmala. The judgment part is not there. It's just, right, Bismillah, Rahman Rahim. In the name of God, the merciful, compassionate. I mean, it's a philological point, but I think the Rahim is actually not a divine name. It's adjectively understood, modifying Rahman. But be that as it may, they're both undeniably cognate, right, etymologically, with the noun for womb. So in any case, it seems to me that the principal echo in the Basmala is from that passage, right, which is it. I hesitate to say it because I'm not sure, but it may be it is one of the most important passages in the Hebrew Bible in Judaism. There's no doubt about that, and it's repeated so many times in the later books of the Hebrew Bible and the Psalms, as I said, in the 12 prophets, the so-called minor prophets. And in the New Testament, in the letter of James, it's repeated again. The judgment part is left off. So in that sense, I think we could say that what happened there in the later books of the Hebrew Bible is a divine anticipation, right, of what we see in the Basmala. The judgment part is left off. No, it's not totally absent because it shows up later in the first surah, right? The Yom al-Din, the Day of Judgment, right? So there is the judgment there, but the principal essence of the divine, right? According to me, if you look at the Basmala, it would appear that this is what is really implying that the essence of it all is this divine mercy. How can we understand mercy? Well, we're humans. We have to see things and process them intellectually. We can see a mother who bears a child and she treats it with kindness and love. And right, if we remember the Aramaic cognate, right, it also means love. So I think there is a valence of love in this divine name, Rahman, even in Arabic. Hopefully, I do hope that one day the lexica are going to reflect that. Right, there is some scholarly discussion about it, but I think lexically the Arabic probably does contain that valence as well, right? Because what is mercy? People saw that mothers treated the fruit of their womb, let's say, their children, the little infant, with kindness, tenderness, love, mercy. And so it was viewing that very concrete reality and situation that then leads to the abstract notion of love and mercy. So the abstract is actually based on the concrete. And of course, in linguistics, that's the way we think too. Like nouns are derived from verbs usually. Anyway, so I don't know if you have any reaction to that that will be suitable for at least approaching an end here tonight. So I don't want to keep you up too late
Well,
there.
well, I think you're. I mean, I think there could be something to it, and the way how you see the basmala, perhaps also echoing, the narrative between Moses and how God presents God's self to Moses, and how you then say that every time the later books of the Hebrew Bible, when they want to, as you use the word echo
Mm,
this, they leave out the judgment part. This reminds me that in the Quran there's a passage in Surah Al-Ma'idah which basically says that no, that God is, very strong in punishment, shadidul
mm,
iqab. But then it continues and says, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ, and God
yes.
is like basically forgives and merciful, and uses the word rahim here, just as in the
Mm,
basmala, for example. And as you say, that maybe how the basmala itself perhaps shows no punishment, or so shows no judgment, and it's just, it's the love, as you say, it's the love of, the mother, the love of the womb,
mm,
for the and yeah, I think, I mean, because that again also, it circles back again to Gospel of John chapter 3.
mm,
It's immediately after, the speech between the conversation between Jesus and Nicodemus.
mm,
It's where it says, and God so loved the world. So that you
mm.
have the word love in here. It's, the,
Right.
the love of the mother, the motherly love, the
Mm,
womb, which is giving, this. So I think there is a lot to it.
mm,
And yeah, so you do have this divine femininity in there, which is the compassion, the love, the
mm,
mercy, and there is no judgment in the basmala. So uh, yeah, I think very much so. There is obviously some symbolism in the Quran, the rituals as well, on
mm,
divine femininity, but also divine masculinity. And
mm,
when we want to do some kind of like comparison, like comparative theology with Hinduism, I mean, again, as I was saying before, it's like, the lingam and the yoni of the symbolism
mm,
of Shiva, of what it represents, the unity, or the union, not the unity, but the union of the masculine and the feminine as the power to create and bring
Mhm,
about life.
mhm,
It's this
mhm.
creative power.
Yes, well, it's perhaps one way of viewing this is that the paternal metaphor, right, is is let's say subtle, remains at a subtle level, right, in the Quran, perhaps because of the whole issue, right, of the notion of the Son of God and the biological implications, or however we explain that. And for this reason, at least I would suspect that it is this reason that the metaphor, divine metaphor of the al Kitab, for instance, is dominant, and it's a virginal mother. So you have a son, or for the Christians, but you have a Kitab from the mother, but she's a virginal mother. So you don't need a father, right? So for the purposes of, on the level, the plane of revelation, this is the role of virginity. So the father is not needed because of this extraordinary, right, virginal uh, conception, right, of the heavenly kitab. So perhaps that's one way of looking at it, right? What is the dominant symbolism, and why is it dominant? So right, so it may or may not be the case, but for me, it seems that the feminine would be the dominant metaphor, since it does occur explicitly and with two divine names ascribed to it. Whereas what you're discussing may be clear, but subtly clear, if that makes sense, right? And there
Yes.
may be maybe some theological reason for that we're not aware of, or that you may be aware of it, but that I may not be aware of. Each religion, right, has its own reason for being and its own emphases, and yet each religion also has, along with the major emphases, a lot of subtleties, right, and esoteric motifs that at times do become exoteric, right? Um, in mysticism, for instance, and esoteric thought, right, which then makes the esoteric exoteric, which sort of makes you wonder, are the two the same in the end? Which in Judaism it actually is. The Peshet coincides with the Sod, because where does the Sod come from? Right, the mystical interpretation is really nothing but taking a hyper literal understanding of the Peshet. Certainly, what you showed us, about the name Zachariah, right, and the mercy, and that actually seems pretty clear to me, that there is this masculine feminine polarity, right, and interaction that's definitely playing a role, and more subtle, right, would be that is congruent with the background in the story of Hannah, right, and right, the barrenness and then the conception of the son. By the way, one last clarification on the Basmala and being an echo of Exodus 34 is that we have in the Hebrew text there where God says, and I will, uh, well, and I will yikra, which means call upon, right? I will call upon, it's in Hebrew, yikra v'shem, yod he vav he, and the ba, is the what's called the beth essentiae, so it's not translated. So I will call the name of the Lord, his God's own name. And so there's this connection between the basmala and the opening of Surah Alaq, right? And
Right.
there, the bet is, I believe, the Arabic equivalent, the Ba'zaid, right? The bet. So it's call the name of your Lord. right? Or proclaim the name of your Lord rather than proclaim in the name. So both of those are actually, I think, echoing the divine echo, the same passage in Exodus, um, and creatively using it once uh, in the sense of the Beth Essentiae, and in the other sense, right, with the prepositional, right, in the name of God, right, the merciful, the compassionate, merciful one. All right,
Yes,
I,
and
I
and I can end with one thing also um, to basically also agree with, perhaps, how the divine feminine, or like the role of the divine feminine, has a big role,
mm,
or a very dominant role, as you say. The Surah An-Nisa, which is the fourth chapter in the Quran,
mm,
actually starts with uh, God creating,
mhm,
and then God creating a nafs, which is the soul. So God basically says, you're that God created you from a single soul. And because the
mm,
word nafs in the Semitic languages is a feminine,
mm.
so it continues and says, and from it, or from her
From her.
specifically,
Mhm,
because the nafs is feminine as a term. So from her, he created her mate. And through both, God spread many men and women.
mm.
And then basically says, so be mindful of God, whose name you appeal to one another, or specifically using the word al-arham, which means, the family ties, those coming from
Yes,
the same womb.
yes,
So here we do see, the nafs being feminine, al-arham being the womb, and it is, it has this dominant role in creation. So I I I wouldn't disagree with your idea that maybe the Quran has the divine feminine, or the its role,
mhm.
generally speaking, in creation, and so forth. So yes, in a, not in a subtle way, but in a much more explicit way, as you say.
Right, and which to me, more or less manifestly, which for me clearly, rather clearly, um, right, is based on. Again, we have a divine, the Katab, right? It says the Katab, which is who is with us, right? So with God, right? And so that makes us think of the opening of the Gospel of John, actually, where the Logos is with God, pros, with God or towards God, right? But this Khatab, or this heavenly entity, personified entity of revelation, or immediately calls to mind Lady Wisdom, or Chokhmah, right? In the Hebrew Bible, the book of Proverbs, chapter 8, very famously, right? She says that she was, with God in the beginning. So a hint there at the opening of the Torah, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Uh, and so this figure of Lady Wisdom, right, who is identified as the Torah, right, in rabbinic tradition, but already it's hinted at in the Hebrew Bible. So rabbinic tradition didn't create this out of nothing, right? Um, this becomes increasingly important in Judaism, right? So you can say this Lady Wisdom equals Lady Torah, and the Torah, right, becomes the center of rabbinic Judaism, which has biblical precedent. Just the 119th Psalm. It's the longest chapter in the Bible, even if you include the New Testament there. It's the longest chapter in the Bible, and it's every verse. I think it's 176 verses. Every single verse is a praise of the Torah, and many things that elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible are said only of God in that chapter are said of the Torah. I will raise my hands to the Torah, right? I will love the Torah with all my heart. Is right. The Shema is being echoed there. So, but if we keep in mind that this Torah, right, which is the center of rabbinic Judaism, is really, right, a manifestation of Lady Wisdom, right? And so, what's the relationship between that, right, and God, right, who in Judaism is called the Father? Um, So it seems to me that that's the background being echoed throughout the Quran when it's this issue of the Kitab is coming up, and it's somehow being exemplified or explained with the person of Mary, who is a virgin mother, who has a son, and somehow that son is corresponding to that Kitab, the heavenly Kitab or revelation. Anyway,
Right.
I'm sure we could go on for quite a long time on this, and utterly fascinating and doubly uh, grateful, right, to you, Abdullah, for the time you
Well,
spent with here tonight.
thank you so much, Samuel. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your time and being very, very gracious as well.
All right. Well, all best wishes, right, for you and your life and your work.
Well, thank you, and God bless you.
Oh, thank you. God bless you too. All right.